Overview, mini assemblies. Why now? So, as I said, Roger and I, back in 2018, helped to start Extinction Rebellion. We were the coordinators of the mobilization team. How do we get as many people involved in a mass movement for social change in our society? And in Extinction Rebellion, we baked in a key demand, which is the third demand, which was for citizens' assemblies. This is the random selection, sortition, the lottery of ordinary people to be part of a new democratic body that could make decisions about how our country was governed, particularly around climate. And since we launched that demand, citizens' assemblies have blown up across the world. There have been dozens of them at national levels in France, in the UK, Belgium, around varied topics, climate being one of them. A particularly thorny one was abortion in Ireland. And across the board, what these assemblies have seen is that when ordinary people come together to discuss even polarizing issues like abortion, that on average, the assembly produces much more progressive ideas, solutions to these problems. They're really remarkable, not just in terms of what the results are, but in terms of how people feel when they're part of them. Afterwards, people were given a survey of many of these assemblies. How did they feel as part of it? And over 90% rated it as one of the top experiences in their life. This idea that for once we're not just a hand to tick an X in a box every 4 years and say that's democracy, but a chance to really be part of something, to hear from diverse views of the community, to hear from experts to guide the decisions. A massively powerful tool. And within Extinction Rebellion, it was kind of a revolution within the rebellion, if you like. This is a way the rebellion was demanding things of our government. They declare a climate emergency, they create these net zero targets, but really the change in power would really come once citizens' assemblies were leading the way and not the kind of lobbied, polluted politicians that have, crafted a new oligarchy across our societies. And citizens' assemblies can really help to break down that power. So they were introduced in various countries across the world, but they were all introduced in half measures. So once we did our mass civil disobedience display in April 2019 in London, the government conceded to our demands partially. And so with the Citizens' Assembly, they created one, but it was advisory. It created recommendations, of which the government followed none. Because of course, they were totally captured by the fossil fuel and otherwise interests. So what we've devised since then is you've seen the kind of evolution of Extinction Rebellion, and that's had spin-off groups that have focused a lot more on the kind of street direct action, as Chris mentioned, of blocking roads. There have also been spin-off movements in terms of local democracy, like Assemble. So Assemble really launched around the UK elections here, and they introduced and brought together many voices, particularly independent voices from candidates that said, we want to start running our own assemblies and be led by local politicians that represent our assemblies. And we had 60,000 people vote for assembly-based candidates, independents, who got 5 new seats in the UK Parliament and kind of got our foot in the door for the assembly model as part of party politics. The German elections last month, the kind of German spin-off of Just Oil also used this technique to bring in a whole wave of new candidates based on assemblies. So the project now is to build upon everything we've learned around civil disobedience, around grabbing attention, around how to build these moments of whirlwind. When loads of people are out on the streets, you have these social media buzz kind of moments, the Arab uprising in 2011, the student strikes for climate in 2018 and 2019. These were huge amounts of energy that then dissipated very quickly afterwards. And what we're trying to build alongside these movements, these social movements of civil disobedience that we've kind of put a lot of effort into the techniques and the mastering of, is how do we build alternative institutions based on assemblies that can help to implement the demands of those social movements. And interestingly, we also saw this with the Yellow Vests movement in France. Whilst they were actually protesting against so-called green policies, they were doing so in a very street-led movement that also used assemblies to help make decisions. And so this is the kind of future that Roger and I are envisaging for our movement. It's like we have these moment of whirlwind potentials from civil disobedience, from capturing the attention, but how does that translate then into an assembly, local-based movement that can look out for each other, that can use mutual aid, that can use community practices to develop a sense of climate resilience and mitigation in their own hands and not have to rely on government demands to do it. So civil disobedience and assemblies, how they come together is how we envisage the revolution. And so the mini assemblies, so right now we have these protest movements, we have groups like Assemble who are, changing local candidates, standing for independence. But the idea of assemblies, even the word itself, is still a murky, maybe advocating of school idea. What is an assembly? To most people, it doesn't mean much of anything apart from, where you sing songs at school, perhaps. So what we're trying to do with mini assemblies is try to break that down and say, look, it's a chance to get together with people in your area, with your family, with people who are concerned around you, with you, and talk about, what you're concerned about in your community and how can we start to change things around that. It's just as simple as that. The act of coming together in circle, in community, has been part of our, human civilization for thousands of years. But with this kind of oligarchical, feudal system of power, we're losing that radical act of speech and community. And so a mini assembly is a chance to rebuild that, to get together and, start to envisage how our community could be different. And the reason we're really excited about this, and Roger Hallam, who probably most of you know from coming along to this call, he called me early one morning from prison, typically around 8:30 a.m., woohoo, and said, look, this is the new big thing. This is how we go exponential in terms of assembly movements, is we host mini assemblies, people in our communities. It can be as simple as through a WhatsApp group or otherwise, where we invite people to discuss how to change things. And then from that, invite people who come along to mini assemblies to also host mini assemblies in their area. Keep the conversation going, keep the dialogue going to break down these kind of social media divisions and polarizations. And we're really excited about what that could ripple out into and how it could go potentially exponential with the results we've seen in Germany from running a series of mini assemblies in the run-up to the election last month. They ran around 40 to 50 mini assemblies with an average of 10 people coming to each, of which 3 to 4 people said, I'm up for hosting a mini assembly as well. So you can already see how running 40 to 50 mini assemblies, if everyone who says that they'll host one afterwards commits to it, can quite quickly become 200 mini assemblies, which can then in turn become 400. And you see the picture. They're really building on each other. And so that's our experimental hope as we launch this project. We've got some simple forms, Google Forms and spreadsheets to keep a track of assemblies, how they're happening, what the results are. And our hope is that we can launch this into the world and really, spark a new conversation about our communities and how to take them forward. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Tabby, who's going to talk a little bit more about, what this mini assembly actually involves. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just give an overview and then you can add if you want to as well. So the key set is very simple. It's the key steps are an introductions like how we did today. You know, you could ask how people are doing, or what yeah, something else, whatever you feel would be good for that group. Then people talk about their concerns. So yeah, the things that are most important that they're concerned about. Again, depending on which group you're doing it with, it could be the community, it could be country, it could be you can decide. It's up to them. It's up to you to decide how you frame it exactly. And we will give more. We can give more framing and stuff if people want, but yeah, at the moment it's just very simple. So that everyone would go around, and it's important that people just can speak and aren't interrupted. So it's not that's right, Robin. It's not conversation in that respect. Everyone just says their um, piece and is moved on, and then afterwards you can discuss it. So you do that go round, and then the next one is the changes that people would like to see um, based out of those concerns or other things as well. And you decide on some key things that you agree on about things you would like to see change, um, and write those down. And the facilitator, which you will probably be, you will encourage, which you will be, I guess. Sorry, you encourage, yeah, listening and participation. People not to interrupt each other. Everyone to, encourage people to speak for the time allotted. If they don't want to, obviously that's okay as well. Maintain a neutral and welcoming environment. So yeah, as a facilitator, you're not inputting in the same way or guiding the discussion. You do want to input a bit, but make sure that yeah, you're mostly guiding and facilitating. And yeah, obviously just make everyone feel part of it. I'm sure you're all capable of doing that, and we'll have some practice in a minute as well. And then at the end, just yeah, wrap it up and get people to fill out the forms, which we'll provide, and talk about any next steps. But you don't have to push people into anything, just um, that there are next steps if they want to run their own or yeah, participate in other ways. I think that's an overview. Robin, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, that sounds great. So don't worry, that's a fair few things to take on, but we'll send a briefing document afterwards that lays it all out. And what's nice also about this, people get to say their concerns, what they're thinking for next steps. And then when we send out, these participation forms afterwards, they can fill in, okay, what are my top 5 points? Then we collate all of that behind the scenes. We get to see what is the kind of conversation moving towards. And these in the future can all feed into our assembly-based projects, our, how are we going to organize our societies at a larger scale? All of these points will feed into how those assemblies national or regional level play out in the future. So it's quite exciting to get all that kind of data together and yeah, encourage people to keep on talking, keep on sparking that conversation in their community. So we will kick off with a practice round. I think role playing is a great way to get familiar and comfortable with trying out new techniques. So I'm going to break out our session into two groups. And we've got Tabby and Harry here, who are part of the team who can help to facilitate. And yeah, I will open the rooms and we can just have a go for the next 15 minutes, practicing a mini assembly again on, but this can be, because we're a global group, can be a global question. So, you can skip the introductions and we can go straight into, okay, what are your concerns at the moment at a global scale? And then second part, what should we do about it? What do you think we should do about it? And then we can feedback afterwards how that went. Sound good?